So Candace Owens, the lady from this book right here. If you haven't read it, I actually recommend reading almost any book from a political commentator from any side just to kind of see how they think. I think it'll allow people to be more understanding of how certain people view the world based on the experiences that they have been through. But her and formerly Kanye, or now Ye, did something that I already knew was going to piss people off. I think that's primarily why they did it. They wore White Lives Matter t shirts at Paris Fashion Week. If I'm being honest, based on all the things that I see at these fashion weeks or fashion shows, it looked like the most normal thing. Not necessarily because of what it said, but like I see there's just like some crazy stuff that like people will wear. Even Ye's like boots, like the things he walks around with, is interesting. They're like rain boots or something like that. But they wore that shirt and then posted this picture, and people got pissed. And I already knew that was going to happen. Like I said, I felt like that was like their goal, the intended goal of it. Well, part of it. The other part is just to state something that is, in my opinion, true. Ye even said it in his interview he did with Tucker Carlson. Like, why did I do it? It's because they matter, right? But people did not like that. They didn't, and I like I said, I knew that was gonna happen, and I saw it, and I didn't even know that was him in the picture at first. I knew it was Candace Owens, but I didn't know who the guy was until he came out and talked about it, and I'm like, oh boy, they've already labeled him crazy, so they're just going to run with this like it's nobody's business. So I saw that, and I asked myself two questions. I'm like, was this necessary to say, and is it true? Those are the two questions I asked myself while everyone's calling him crazy and like a bunch of other isms. Like I said, there's 1,000 of them now. I don't know what they even mean anymore. So I'm not even going to try to sit there and say what he was called. But I asked myself those two questions. The first answer for the question that I asked is it necessary? In my opinion, it is and it isn't. Right? I thought that it felt a little unnecessary simply because there is no socially accepted public perception that white people's lives are under attack by whatever the case may be. Now, is that true? Not necessarily. Everybody goes through stuff, but society has not deemed that white people are under attack by something. Therefore, it kind of seemed like part of it was meant to start an argument, which inevitably that's what happened. On the flip side of it, I mean, is it wrong to say? No. Like, unless you're the Anti Defamation League, who deems White Lives Matter some like extremist hate speech or something like that. Which I get that too, to a degree. Some people would say it in response to Black Lives Matter. Other people would say it because it's like, hey, I'm tired of being shamed because I'm white. My life matters. I didn't really do anything to anybody, so I don't know why I'm getting all this hate. So I see both sides of it. But then that brings me to the next question. Is it true? Yes, it is true. And the reason I hone in on this is because I take issue with the fact that this is even a conversation at all. I get it. The past sucks. Looking at it is uncomfortable a lot of the times. There's a bunch of bad stuff that has happened that is kind of snowballed and then tapered off a little bit, but kind of still has a little bit of its residue, right? Imprinted on society today. So I get the whole Black Lives Matter, White Lives Matter deal. I get it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I have to like it. I don't like the conversation. I'm not a big fan of the fact that a movement even had to become created, but not for the reason that people think. Yes, it's unfortunate when I see a black man die at the hands of a police officer, but my frustration is the public perception that in from 2014 to now, which is 2022, that there has been an epidemic of unarmed black people being shot and killed by the police. That was the thought. That was the public perception, right? The public perception is that black people's lives are under attack. Hence, we need a movement called Black Lives Matter to let white people know, hey, our life matters, stop killing us. They even said it on Drink Champs, the podcast that Kanye went on a few days ago, and then YouTube took it down. No shocker there. Where the host was saying that, they're just, killing us every effing day and just going in. And
We really getting killed out here, yeah? Yeah, listen. We're really getting killed out here.
I'm like, I can see why you might think that, but if you look at the facts, that's just not true. At least the way that we perceive it. Now, I don't even know how serious I am when I say that, because in 2022, facts really don't matter. I mean, that's a thing of the past as well. Facts like truth, things that are not anyone's opinion. Those don't really exist anymore. So I don't even know why I'm going down this rabbit hole, but screw it. I'm already halfway in. If you look at the facts, less than 1% of all police shootings every single year involve a police officer, a white police officer, shooting and or killing an unarmed black man. And the reason I say unarmed is because that's been the narrative, right? Unarmed black men are doing whatever they're doing, and police officers have nothing better to do than to hunt them down. Now, when a police officer does shoot and kill an unarmed black man, regardless if it was justified or unjustified, I think it's horrible. It's not okay at all, in my opinion, when somebody is killed by another person. Like, who do you think that you are? How much more power do you think you have over me to determine if I live or die, regardless of if you're a police officer or not? It's another issue I have with the Black Lives Matter movement, is it only focuses on that. It focuses on the minority of deaths within the black community. I, as a black person, if I step outside, my life is more threatened by someone who looks like me, by another black person, than it is a white person or a police officer. That's just the facts. But that didn't seem to make the cut, right? You can just ask Don Lemon about that.
If you want an all Black Lives Matter movement that talks about gun violence in communities, including, black communities, then start that movement with that name.
But that was the public perception, and that's my issue with Black Lives Matter as a whole, is I believe it was created in good faith, but us as black people were easily manipulated. And on top of that, black struggle sells, right? It is a trigger for us to see something that we perceive as racist, or for someone to say something racist. Like if you really think about the N-word, for example, if someone says it, even if they say it in the same context as somebody, like when I say someone, I mean, let's say a white person. If a white person says the N-word in the same context that one of your black friends or somebody said the N-word, us as black people, we typically get pissed off by that. We'd be offended by it, even though he used it in the exact same context. Just look at the Joe Rogan situation. He was saying it on his podcast, but he wasn't calling anybody the N-word. He was maybe quoting somebody or alluding to some type of historical context, and he would just say the word. He wouldn't just say the N-word. He would actually say the word, and people wanted his head for it. So anything that we even perceive as racist or has some racial intent, it's a trigger for us. Guess what? They know that. Right? All the people who run the stuff, the media outlets, they all know that. Guess what? They profit off of that. If something happens and they can hype it up unlike anything else, people will go to them for news coverage. They'll vote for them. They'll donate to their causes. They'll do whatever. All off the backs of us. And we're just fine with just dishing it out. Because we have been tricked, we have been manipulated into thinking that these people are here to help us. No, they're here to profit off of us. And we play right into their hands when Kanye wears when Ye wears a White Lives Matter shirt. And like I said, maybe a little unnecessary, but like we look at that and like just start just like tweaking out. Oh my goodness, I can't believe he said that. I can't believe he wore that shirt. The thing that they try to say is that, well, when we say Black Lives Matter, we're not saying that white lives don't matter. It's just black lives are under attack. Kind of like if you've ever heard, I don't know, an animal that's extinct. Let's just say whales. That probably is an actual thing, but like save the whales or something like that. You're not saying that other fish don't matter. It's just whales are going extinct, so save the whales, And that would make sense if the facts lined up with it, but it just doesn't, right? That's not saying that police officers don't have prejudice, right? That's not saying that at all. But if you really want to look at the issue within the police department, at least in the 21st century, it is poor training. The fact that you can be a police officer in as little time as it takes is ridiculous, considering that you are basically a military deployed into civilization to enforce the law and to protect and serve. The fact that the physical requirements aren't higher, they're not stricter, that's a joke, right? Plus, when you get into the department, there is a code, right? It don't matter what color you are. They all stick by each other. If you want to allude to George Floyd's death, the police officer who kneeled on his neck, his police chief was black. He had a black police chief for the couple years leading up to the George Floyd situation. That man was committing acts of police brutality for years and years and years, and nobody checked him. Had so many complaints filed against him, nobody checked him. And then he had a black police chief. What, the black police chief didn't think to look at this dude and say, maybe you shouldn't be a police officer, right? Because you have, because I just got here and I'm seeing all of these complaints, just one after the other. Didn't think about it. Only decides to say something when it results or is related to the death of a black man, right? Because now the public perception is that this department is racist and we can't have that. So now I'm going to come out and say something. Oh, we don't tolerate that type of conduct. Well, clearly you have for the past almost 20 years that he was there, right? And granted, he didn't come to the last few, but still, even in those last few, you didn't think to question whether this man should have a job with this department or not. So you tell me if that is racially provoked or if that's just a code that they live by, that they operate by. They stick to it, right? They look out for each other. On top of that, the training is not what it should be considering what the job is. You know what I'm saying? But as soon as you say that was racist, I mean, it's like we just see red. Everything shuts off and we just go, man. And it's ridiculous, right? So the fact that people even have to walk around wearing Black Lives Matter or White Lives Matter merchandise, it is weird and is disheartening. But I've said this before. This is, in my opinion, the greatest country on the planet for equality, but the people within the country don't seem to care about it, right? You look at the numbers, the facts, and compared to all black homicides, police killing unarmed black men accounts for the lowest of the percents of it, which they're still horrible. I'm not taking away from the tragic nature of them, but I'm just speaking facts. Because white people are killed by the police too. But like I said, we don't care about that. There's this video.
This is bad. We gotta get out of here.
And this video.
Get out of the car. Shots fired! Shots fired! Shots fired!
Both of them are horrible. One, white guy is getting beaten up by police officers, white police officers. And if you look at the comments of that video, it's just people asking, what did the guy do? But if that was a black person, you know what they would have said. It doesn't matter what he did. They shouldn't be doing that to him. Other videos of a white kid in a McDonald's parking lot eating, the police officer mistakes him for somebody else who ran away from him the other day. And some random dude just opens up his car door. That being the police officer. But to him, it was just some random dude. He didn't know who the freak that was. Shoots at him. And the last I heard about it, this kid's on life support. And he was trying to eat. I don't see any public outrage about that. It's a problem. But even the outrage that I see about black people getting shot and killed by the police, I mean, they're in the off season right now. You mean to tell me in 2021 and in 2022 there weren't black people who were shot and killed by the police? But when's the last time you heard about it? 2020. Oh, I wonder why. Maybe it's because it was hyped and the people involved in the hype had something to gain from it. i.e., election victories. Like, come on now. And I understand that people can get burnt out of hearing just tragic news, but if you are an actual legitimate movement that cares about social justice, you don't sleep. You don't. There is no off season. You might report on it heavily during a certain time, and in some other times you might go a little bit lighter just because you have to retain people in order to ensure that the public is engaged in social justice efforts. All right, you will turn a lot of people off if every single day it's just death and destruction. So I get that aspect of it, but I mean, they're in the complete off season. BLM is nowhere to be found. The only two things that I've really heard about them this year was one being reports of the owners or the CEOs of the Black Lives Matter organization
Brought to you by Pfizer.
buying houses in what looks to be white neighborhoods, freaking spending millions of dollars on the houses and then spending hundreds of thousands of dollars renovating them. And then also, I also saw them trying to defend themselves against Candace Owens' documentary, basically like exposing them for the things that they have done since the start of it, right? It started off as a movement, and I wholeheartedly believe it has transcended into a business. And I hear people all the time tell me, like when I bring that up, well, I support Black Lives Matter, the movement, but not the business. And I'll be like, well, it's the same thing, right? That's like saying you miss the old me, as if the new me isn't that exact same person who just kind of changed, if you will, right? I'm not like two different people. Like the Black Lives Matter movement, yes, it was an error in BLM, but the organization is the exact same thing. It's the exact same people for the most part. Right? It has just morphed into that. So you saying, well, I support it. Well, that's no longer what they are anymore. The old me and the new me, I'm the same person. I'm just different. So if you miss the old me, well, reminisce, because that's as close as you're going to get to it. But trying to parade around as if that version is still tangible, if it's still present, it's not. And it's definitely not separate. So we're getting played, man. Like Black Struggle, it is the number one seller in this country, and they're profiting off of it. White people, black people, it don't matter who it is. We're getting played, and it's weird that we've strived for equality, but we still tend to segregate ourselves really without even thinking about it. But then when it's brought to our attention, we look to justify it at every turn. 5 years from now, if the public perception isn't that Black lives are under attack, people will still sport BLM merchandise, hats, t-shirts. I saw somebody the other day with a license plate, a bumper sticker. You put a bumper sticker on the back of your freaking car that says White Lives Matter. 5 years from now, well, today, 5 years from now, whatever, especially if you're on like a college campus, good luck. When you leave that car and you return, it will not be the same. So like I said, we're getting played, man, and it's unfortunate, but I mean, we keep feeding into it. Right? We can stop anytime we're getting ready. We can look at reality, and we can
Today, Junior?
We can look at reality and we can acknowledge it, or we can continue to go down this path and get pissed at a black man returning the favor. Because trust and believe, if you see these BLM protests or riots, yeah, it's filled with a bunch of black people. But at the front of that army is maybe 4 or 5 white people. Scattered in the middle is some white people as well. But the ones leading the charge is white people.
Is whether or not to move forward, because they only have where this white guy with the skateboard is standing.
They got Black Lives Matter in as big a letters as you can see. So, as Jay put it, just returning the favor, right? I know my life matters, No amount of insecurity or public perception will make me think different. And I think that ideally applies in the general sense. I understand that there are specific situations that are different, but those apply across the board. And you want to talk about discrepancies? Okay, well then lay out the facts, what's real, not what CNN says it to be. So do white lives matter? Absolutely. Do Black lives matter? Absolutely. Like all of our lives matter. So that conversation doesn't really need to be had anymore, even though it will happen still. But if you didn't know, now you know. And please stop giving your money and your time and your attention to this Black Lives Matter organization, because they have been playing us from the jump. And the same white man that you can't stand, that you have attributed a lot of the issues in the black community to perpetrating, guess what? They're working right along with them. And they ain't got no plans to stop it anytime soon.